Welcome to the High Level Wife Podcast. This is a space for Christian wives who love God, want their marriage healed, and are done performing, fixing, striving, or trying to control their way to change. Here we're going to talk about marriage God's way through right order, surrender, heart posture, and spirit-led transformation. This is not self-help, it's discipleship. My name is Chelsey Holm, and my role is to help you move from awareness into obedience so real healing, wholeness, and restoration can take root. Let's begin.
Welcome back to the High Level Wife Podcast. I am Chelsey Holm, your hostess, and here we do marriage God's way. Not what you say, it's how you say it. This is something that I say to my kids all the time, but it absolutely applies to any kind of communicative relationship, right? Especially marriage. Because I've said something to my husband before where, it was the wrong tone, or it was the wrong timing, or it was simply just not phrased the best way, and it wasn't well received. Surprise, surprise. And then I've said other times I've said the exact same thing, but I had a good tone, I had the right timing, and I also had better phrasing. And it was received completely differently. And so this is kind of about that, say this instead of that mentality. Because men do not want to be managed by their wives. Men do not want to be controlled. They don't want to be told what to do. And you need to understand too that all day long, your husband is being criticized. He is being questioned. He is having to walk in good character and do the right thing, even and especially when nobody's looking, right? And he is being essentially assaulted all day long when he's outside of the home. So we've talked about this before, that you as a wife are an atmosphere shifter, and also the fact that you are a life giver and you create space for life to happen, for people to step in, right? That's what we do as women. And so when your husband comes home and crosses that threshold, the atmosphere absolutely should be set that it's warm and it's inviting. And so we can't just look at the space, though. We have to look at what we say and how we say it, because there's a huge difference in, honey, I need you to pray with us more. Or, honey, I need you to pray with us. I need you to pray with me, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that statement, but it's not the best phrasing, nor is it the right tone. And there's completely a different way you can do it. And so I want to suggest to you strongly that there is a way to ask the same question, but in a completely different format. And this ties back into episodes about speaking to the king in your husband and not the fool. And it also ties into having respect for the position of authority that your husband holds, that he's been given by God, right? And so when you have that respect, you're able to look at your husband differently. And so all and you avoid the little attitude or the snippiness or the tone, and it's going to just make everything much better. It really is. Like, it shifts the dynamic, it shifts the atmosphere. And so here's an example. So I already said, you need to pray with us more, right? That is a managerial approach. That is a demand. It is true. Your husband should be praying over his family and leading his family spiritually. But what if instead you said, honey, I love how you lead us spiritually. Would you mind praying with us tonight before bed? Or, and I recently did this with my husband. I said, I know we've recently changed our schedule. I love it when you pray over me. Is this something that we could find a different time now with this new schedule so that we can make that happen? Because that's really important to me. Um, so that's just one example for you. This is going to be a really short episode, but what I want you to take away from this is it's really not what you say, it's how you say it. And it all comes from that heart posture. Everything always hinges upon the heart posture. And, how about adding a little bit of flirtation into asking your husband to do a task, right? And not forcing something that's fake or just putting something out there and then not following through on it. But, instead of saying, husband, I need you to hang this picture for me, how about, hey, you look really sexy on that ladder. Would you mind hanging this picture up there for me so I can watch you do it? Right? Like, it's just silly. Like, we don't have a lot of fun in our marriage after a certain time, but our relationship started with a lot of fun. Like, think back to the beginning of your relationship, right? It was like all fun all the time. And so looking for ways intentionally to bring this back in. And one extra thing for this is when we're talking about requests, right? And communicating and asking your husband to do things for you or help you with things or just communicating overall. We also need to realize that we need to filter our requests through our family mission, our core values, and the direction that we're pulling in together. Right? Like, I have a ton of ideas all the time. And my husband knows that when I start a conversation with, I've been thinking, he's like, oh dear, and my husband is so good at bringing me back down to reality and filtering through our family values, right? Like, we live a military life, which means that no place that we live is ever forever, which, hello, we're all believers. So no place we live in this world is ever forever either. But so we have this, like, I always want to do a lot of things to the house that we live in. And, my husband frequently reminds me that that's a great idea. However, that doesn't align with the overall direction and the mission that we're on, right? Like, whether it's we use those funds for something else, or it's, this just isn't the right time, but that doesn't mean we can't do that in the future, maybe at a different location. And so when you have a request for your husband to do something for you, or accomplish something for you, or do something with you, make sure that you're looking at the big picture and you're filtering it through the family mission, your core values, and that you're pulling in the same direction. Because we can have a lot of great ideas, but just like how we speak, it might be the wrong timing, right? It might be, it just might not be in alignment with the overall goals and direction of the family that are in alignment with the mission that you guys are on together for the Lord and building his kingdom, and specifically with the giftings and talents that the Lord has given you. Just last night, my husband was like, hey, let's go outside and let's paint the post on the porch, and we just had like a little quart of paint and we went to it. And I mean, it took us it was like under 30 minutes to get that done, but it looks so nice, right? And so, like, that's kind of how we approach, what can we do around our house, because we don't move often. But, my husband could have said, you paint this, or I could have said, when are you going to do this, right? Like, there's so many ways to say the same thing, but to do it in a way that is just, it's not kind and it's not gentle and it's not looking at the overall big picture, and it's completely devoid of the gospel applied, right? To speak gently and kindly and right, to love one another, but that comes from an overflow of loving God first and foremost, above everything and everyone else, even ideals. So I'm going to end with that. This is still along the same lines, but we talked about this yesterday on the High Level Wife call of an ideal, having an ideal version or vision of what your husband should be, or who he should be, or what he should be like. And that's actually a form of idolatry, because that's getting all your energy. That's getting all of your focus, all of your worship, right? Like you're worshiping this ideal of your husband. But what that actually communicates to your husband is that he's not enough and he'll never be good enough for you because he's never going to attain that. And so I want to leave you with that yes, this ties into communication, but are you communicating with your husband in a way that is assuming a lot of stuff and is actually playing into a role of idolatry in your marriage and how you think your husband should think, speak, and act? And that is then informing how you're speaking to your husband. I'll see you on the next episode.
If this episode stirred something in you, but high-level wife feels like too big of a step right now, I want you to hear this clearly. You don't have to jump ahead to honor what God is doing. I created a short guided experience called From Awareness to Surrender for women who aren't ready for ongoing support but know they can't stay where they are. It includes 3 short teachings, a guided exercise, and a prayer I recorded over you. It's going to help you move from awareness into real response. You'll find the link in the show notes. And if you're not ready even for that, don't rush past this moment. Sit with God and ask Him what obedience looks like next.